Welcome to the Fast Leader Podcast, where we uncover the leadership life hacks that help you to experience breakout performance faster and rocket to success. And now, here's your host, customer and employee engagement expert and certified emotional intelligence practitioner, Jim Rimbach.
The number one thing that contributes to customer loyalty is emotions. So move onward and upward faster by gaining significantly deeper insight and understanding of your customer journey and personas with emotional intelligence. With your empathy mapping workshop, you'll learn how to evoke and influence the right customer emotions that generate improved customer loyalty and reduce your cost to operate. Get over your emotional hump now by going to empathymapping.com to learn more. Okay, Fast Leader Legion, today I'm excited because I have somebody on the show to me who was just so intriguing when I first met them that I had to actually have them on the show so you get to meet them too. Adam Dorrell grew up in a suburb of North London in England, right on the edge of what they call the Green Belt. It was the best of both worlds. He used to travel to London on a tube, and as a kid, he would play in a huge expanse of woodland greenery and golf courses that started at the end of his garden. Adam loves the outdoors and camping. He was a scout, walked, hiked, and did a lot of open-air activities while growing up. Adam was also interested in engineering, but his real hobby was electronics and robotics. He built radios and buzzing circuits from about the age of 9, graduating to using mains electricity in his early teens. It's quite amazing that he didn't electrocute himself fatally or start fires back then. At high school, Adam completed a working robot that interfaced with his computer, a Sinclair ZX Spectrum. Adam has had an interesting career. He's been an advertising salesperson, sold computers, then moved into marketing. His career took him to spend 3 years in Switzerland working for digital equipment. Back in the UK, he worked for Compaq, Dell, Avaya. He then moved to mainland Europe, to Brussels in Belgium to run the e-commerce platform for Sony. Then later to Amsterdam, Netherlands, where he lived for 10 years. He started a company there because he can't speak Dutch and realized he was pretty much unemployable. His next challenge is moving his family to the US later this year. Currently, Adam is the CEO of Customer Gauge, a software-as-a-service platform that helps clients improve customer retention using the Net Promoter System. Adam currently lives in a 200-year-old house in Amsterdam that is just one room wide with his wife, Camilla, and their 2 young children that speak 3 languages fluently. Adam also has 2 grown-up kids at college in the UK. Adam Dorrell, are you ready to help us get over the hump?
I really am, Jim. I'm ready when you are.
I'm glad you're with us. Now, I've given our listeners a little bit about you, but can you tell us what your current passion is so that we can get to know you even better?
Yeah, I think my current passion, Jim, is all about reducing customer mortality. And that sounds like a strong word, but many businesses don't even measure how many customers they're losing. We call this customer retention. And so my passion really is to help bring businesses the tools and the skills that they can reduce their customer churn, increase their retention, and basically put more to the bottom line.
I mean, when I hear you say that, there's so many things that just start running through my head. And one of the things that I often find is kind of counterproductive, counterintuitive, oxymoronic. I mean, there's so many words you can describe to it, is that inside organizations, they often look for lean, ways to cut, ways to be more efficient. And when you start thinking about customer experiences, they say that the differentiator is really around just that, the experience, creating relationships. And what I see is oftentimes is companies just really just cut themselves to the bone and have no way possible of putting that value back into that experience. I mean, when I say that, what comes to your mind?
I hear what you're saying, Jim. I think that really it comes down to examining what the least possible expense they can put on a customer experience. But I tell you what I found in my 10 or 12 years of doing this is that companies I work with often put somebody in charge of customer experience or to measure it. But it's really difficult to find someone in the business whose sole responsibility is retention revenue, which is kind of a weird paradox. They try to fix the customer experience without having somebody responsible for the metrics to find out if they're going to be bringing in more revenue or losing it. So that's a really interesting aspect that I find. And I think one of the reasons is there are very few tools that help to do this. There's very little science. And if anything, it's really a sort of a Cinderella operation looking after clients. So that's, I guess, why it hasn't had much focus in the past.
I often find too, and you can tell me whether or not this is something that you've come across, is that when you start talking about, tools, when you also refer to this issue in regards to skill set, ability, experiences, there is a very, very different thing that occurs when you start talking about being able to analyze data and then being able to take data and drive insights from the data and make it into something that is now going to generate some change or even go through that change process. I mean, there's multiple steps within that conversion and it's not a situation where, you talk about one person. That person would have to be extremely gifted to be able to execute it by themselves, but it creates more. But that person has to be the instigator and has to have the skill sets to do it.
I agree. I mean, coming back to your point about companies cutting the resources to deliver great customer services, what I often find is that the people on the front line, they know what's needed to do. Like when you go to the airline and they say, oh, you need to pay extra for this baggage or you need an extra ticket without knowing that you're a frequent flyer. They don't want to put that rule on. It's been imposed on them from above by, a middle manager who's got another metric to meet. But the overall bigger picture, the guys on the front line, they know that the whole time. And I think that's one of the things I really love about what I do. When you read customer comments and present it around the organization, that's the biggest power. That's the sort of the voice of the customer like that. And I love giving companies the tools to do that.
And, I also often find too that I think you talk about front line. I've spent many years on the front line, managing front line. And you're right. I think they do get put in a very compromising position. And what I often find is that they aren't given the tools to be able to, support customers in a lot of ways without using the dreaded word policy.
Yeah.
I mean, and for me as a consumer, as a customer, when I hear that word, I now know because what I've gone through and my experiences, it's like, well, there's nothing else to talk about then. Let's not waste our time. If you're going to whip that word out to me, we're done.
I hear what you're saying. But Jim, it's really hard for organizations to empower people. It is tough. I really understand that, especially as companies get larger. When they're small, it's much easier to do that. You can interact with people. But the issue is, how do you empower people on the front lines? It's very hard to do that. I've seen some good examples about how companies do that. They allow certain frontline people the ability to spend $50 or $100 or do certain things. I think that's a really good start. But kind of like a don't shoot me policy is also a good way of doing this. Just let people get on with it and then discuss afterwards what happens, I think.
Yeah, that's a good point. Now, one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the show is because reality is you're a subject matter expert. I mean, okay, yeah, you're a CEO of a software company, but you have the depth of experience and knowledge from multiple cultures that really adds value to the work that you're doing and the people and clients and customers that you're serving. But, when we first met, just struck me, and I have to share this because I want to know where this comes from. You asked me some questions that were very bold. And, typically I don't find that coming from Europeans. I just don't. And for me, I was actually taken aback and I was like, well, I didn't know if I should share some of those things that you were asking me, but I'm an open person for the most part. And so I'm like, well, why am I apprehensive? Because he's now asking me. So where does that come from? Because I think it's also been a contributing factor to where you are today.
Well, I think it has, Jim. I live in Holland, in the Netherlands. I'm an English guy that lives in Holland, and one of the things I first experienced when I moved here was how direct the people are. There's very little noise in the communications. It's really get right to the point. I really respect the Dutch for that. It's great. Perhaps the other part, though, let's be honest, is perhaps just my native rudeness. That lack of social awareness. Maybe that's it. I don't want to take too much out of it. But yeah, life's too short sometimes to indulge in too much small talk. And I think we had a good connection straight away. For example, I felt comfortable asking those questions. I hope I didn't offend you. I think it seemed to work out okay.
Oh, I did too as well, man. You're here, and believe me, it's one of those reasons why. And I've talked about this many times with previous guests, is that, and Dave Rendell, who was a guest on the show, talked about, he made some comments stating that, what makes us weird is actually what makes us wonderful, something like that. And so for me, what I've been trying to be more mindful of is when things strike me as odd, to not let them cause me to close down, if that makes sense. What I instead need to do is open up a little bit more and try to figure out where that's coming from. And that's, that's an emotional intelligence type of activity, is to be able to be more active in your thinking and active in your listening process so that you just don't close people off. So I wanted to share that with
Actually, I would turn that around the other way, Jim. And I work a lot with Americans. I spend most of my time in America these days. And I actually find it the other way around. I find Americans refreshingly open and direct in a way that's really non-offensive. So I actually appreciate I take that as a compliment. So thank you very much.
No, thank you. Okay. And from that, I mean, you're a person of high energy, and we always look for sources of energy on the Fast Leader Show. And one of the ways we do that is through leadership quotes. And I'm sure in your travels and your studies and obviously you're well read. Is there some quotes or two that stand out to you that give you some energy?
Well, I think so. I mean, look, I'm going to use that cliche. We just spoke about it earlier on. Actually, I think if you're in business, you take quotes from the customer and then you use it around the business, especially positive customer quotes. I'm in the business of helping companies get a large amount of feedback, and that can be kind of scary if you get the unvarnished truth from customers. Companies are not always willing to accept that. But, every once in a while, or depending on how good you are, you get a good quote. That's fantastically energizing. And I love that. And you can pick out individual people, or the obverse is you pick something and you go, oh, they've really nailed it. We really got to deal with that. So anyway, that's a bit of a cliche, and I won't do that. But I can think of a few great quotes that I like. Winston Churchill, he said, if you're going through hell, keep going. And I think that's a good motto for me. We're just like going for it and just pushing through the things. I've got a whole software team downstairs as I speak here from you in Amsterdam, and I like to tell these guys that it's estimating a job is really difficult. And I think it was a guy from Bell Labs, I'd have to look it up, who said the first 90% of coding accounts for about 90% of the time, and then testing it and finishing it off is responsible for the other 90%. And I think that's about accurate. It takes about twice as long to finish a coding job than you actually do. So that's the kind of reality that we deal with here.
Now, being somebody who has two families, you have some older children and some younger kids. You are a CEO of a software company. You've had a couple careers within your life. There's humps that I'm sure you've had to get over, and that have inspired you, that caused you to go in a different direction, and hopefully a better one. But is there a story that you can share with us of when you've had to get over the hump where you were better off by going through it?
Yeah, there's been a few humps in my life. But I think I've been made redundant 3 times. And when you have young families, that's always a challenge. And I think you speak to people that they take that in many different ways. But the first time I was made redundant was actually after a very unhappy and short employment that I had, and that was a relief, to be honest, to be out of there. And I came out of that. I was lucky enough to find some consulting work. So that was my first taste of entrepreneurship. But at the most recent time was actually a complete blessing, really. I mean, I left with a reasonably generous package that I was able to go off and spend a little bit of time reflecting. That's actually when I moved to Amsterdam, and I had enough money to survive for a couple of months, and even to start the business that I'm now running, Customer Gauge. And I think whatever happens, even if you leave in the best way, being made redundant really does cause you to look at yourself. So it's a moment for personal reflection. It's never a good thing. You think, could I have done it better? Could I have changed it? But ultimately, it can be the kicker that gets you going. And I'm just delighted to have that experience and to move on. And much hard as it seems, losing your job is sometimes the best thing that can happen to you. You've probably heard that before, Jim. Sounds like, again, another cliche, but I really think it can be very positive.
Yeah, I think sometimes we do need a good push. And while it doesn't feel good while it's occurring, if we can just kind of, with your Winston Churchill, type of a quote is that, okay, it's hell, but just keep on going. Is that if we can do that, oftentimes we do come out better on the other end. Now, I will also notice that your wife actually works with you within Customer Gauge.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, look, that can be very challenging when you start talking about being essentially with somebody all day long. It's at work and then after work, and being able to come over a lot of the humps, both personally and professionally. How do you guys do it?
Well, I first of all would say I consider myself super lucky that I'm in this position. And because sharing your work and life with someone is great. Absolutely, it's tough. It's not so much the spending the time together, because oftentimes we're traveling or just doing things outside, or so we're not sitting opposite each other night and day. It's really positive in that we really get to think deeply about it, and we really care about our staff. So we get to think about how we can plot their careers and help and develop people, about business problems. Luckily, we're also very well matched. Camilla's very well, really responsible for the finance, the operational details. She's great at that. Whereas I'm more creative, prone to a flight to fancy, let's just say, and a real drive. So there's a really good balance that happens. I think it can be difficult. It was not all investors big fans of a husband and wife team. And I think it could be perhaps challenging for new hires that have to come in and see a dynamic work. But I think with both Camilla and myself, we had long careers in large enterprises. So we try to bring good corporate discipline to the table. And I think that it's really our founder dynamic that works well in our organization.
I also had the opportunity to listen to somebody who was talking about entrepreneurship, and basically what they were saying is that it just isn't for everybody. There's so much buzz. There's so much hype, talk. There's just so much out there in regards to, hey, start your own business. Hey, do this, do that. And, set your own, future, all of those things. But when you start looking at the percentage of folks that are actually successful at being an entrepreneur, it's an extremely small percentage point. Of course, we all hear about the glory folks, who, hit it big, so to speak. But it just isn't. It isn't for everyone. So if you were to talk about, a piece of advice that you would give to somebody who is contemplating or thinking about entrepreneurship, not that we want to stop them from doing it, but if you were to give them a piece of advice, what would it be?
Oh, that's a really good question, Jim. We talk about quotes. I was at Woody Allen that said 80% of success is just showing up, something like that. I think it's there is something just about just being in the game and just keep going. So working hard is definitely part of it. Look, I would just say to anybody, in fact, anybody contemplating any career, is just do something that you love. We have to work for a long time these days, and it's hard to keep motivated. And I just think the more I really think about this is just do things that you love and just can work on. I'm blessed by having a great team around me. I come to work for the people. I really love the people I work with, and I think we've been able to build a community of doing things that I like to think we help businesses become more successful, and that's a common thread that runs through our company. And we've got a great team, and that alone makes me want to show up for work. And if you're an entrepreneur, get some great people around you who you enjoy working with, and just have fun. And I think success will follow.
So when you start talking about goals, what would be some of your goals?
I want to be able to put customer retention on the map. It's a real Cinderella science at the moment. Everyone's talking about bringing in new businesses and acquiring customers. Listen, that's super important to growth, but very little attention is paid to keeping customers at the other end. When I was at a former employee, we were spending $1 million a month on Google AdWords and nothing on retention. And I just saw the waste there. And that's actually what really sparked off one of my passions again, talking about customer mortality. So I'd love to put that on the map. I'd love to become known as the customer retention guy. Apart from that, I'd love to try and take the business as far as it can. I've also got another passion, which is to teach kids robotics and electronics. I do that with my 9-year-old son's school. And I really get some great pleasure out of looking at the way that kids fiddle around with electronics and robotics and just create some crazy machines. And I think that's a sort of passion I can really pass on, that they can just tinker around with some stuff, have some fun. And look at me. 30 years after tinkering with a robot, I've got a software company. I never thought that would happen. But if I really trace it back, it really goes back to the roots of just messing around with transistors and computers.
And the Fast Leader Legion wishes you the very best. Now, before we move on, let's get a quick word from our sponsor. Developing your contact center agents using surveys is what monkeys do. Elevate your ROI on VOC by building integrity and agent engagement with the survey calibration process, only available in the award-winning external quality monitoring program from Customer Relationship Metrics. Move onward and upward by going to customersgradethecall.com/fast and getting your $7,500 rapid results package for free. All right, here we go, Fast Leader Legion. It's time for the Hump Day Hoedown. Okay, Adam, the Hump Day Hoedown is the part of our show where you give us good insights fast. So I'm going to ask you several questions, and your job is to give us robust yet rapid responses that are going to help us move onward and upward faster. Adam Dorrell, are you ready to hoedown?
I'm ready for the square dance, Jim.
All right. So what do you think is holding you back from being an even better leader today?
I'd love more time to do things. So better time management would be good.
What is the best leadership advice you have ever received?
What is that one from Jefferson? Something like, I don't believe in luck, but I find that the harder I work, the luckier I get.
What is one of your secrets that you believe contributes to your success?
Never giving up.
What do you feel is one of your best tools that helps you lead in business or life?
Excel. PowerPoint, probably.
What would be one book that you'd recommend to our listeners? And it could be from any genre.
I've got a few books. Ever got time, Jim? Fred Reichheld and Robert Markey's book on The Ultimate Question, because I think the Net Promoter track is one that's worth following. Jackie Huber, she had a great book, Creating Customer Evangelists. I love that book. Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell. And then, of course, The Kickback. P.G. Woodhouse, Jeeves and Wooster books, and Sherlock Holmes, obviously.
Fast Leader listeners, you can find links to that and other bonus information from today's show by going to fastleader.net/Adam Dorrell. Okay, Adam, this is my last Hump Day Hoedown question. Imagine you were given the opportunity to go back to the age of 25, and you've been given the opportunity to take the knowledge and skills that you have now back with you, but you can't take everything. You can only choose one. So what skill or piece of knowledge would you take back with you, and why?
Do not be afraid to start a business earlier. Become an entrepreneur earlier. And why? Because I should have just started earlier. And it's I'll leave it at that.
Adam, it was an honor to spend time with you today. Can you please share with the Fast Leader Legion how they can connect with you?
Sure. You can always get hold of me, adam.dorrell@customergauge.com.
Adam Dorrell, thank you for sharing your knowledge and wisdom. The Fast Leader Legion honors you and thanks you for helping us get over the hump. Woo-hoo! Thank you for joining me on the Fast Leader Show today. For recaps, links from every show, special offers, and access to download and subscribe, if you haven't already, head on over to fastleader.net so we can help you move onward and upward faster.